I feel like a kid in a candy store. Let's go explore. If you want to come and check out this absolutely magical place, then go to platinumlist.net right now. It's Joe Mango here from Platinum List. If this looks like something you want to do, the longest zip line in the world, then make sure you go to platinumlist.net right now. Wish me luck. 3, 2, 1. Let's do this! The most amazing thing I've ever done. I just finished the longest zip line in the world with Torre Verde down here at Double Days. It was absolutely insane. Get your tickets right now, platinumlist.net.
Hi, I'm Lily.
And I'm Dan.
And we are The Load In.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Lily. How are you?
Good afternoon. I should have said and Taco.
And Taco, yeah.
He's
Taco's
on
like
the show.
the Taco, the token
I couldn't
dog.
get him a babysitter today, so he's on the show, working mum.
He's here. No, we should actually give him an interview one day.
One day.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
More than me
Listen,
on a bad day.
today we have a great episode.
We do, actually.
We do, and a very, very important topic
Yeah.
at that, mental health.
And something which I think has been affecting all of us without even realising,
Very
I guess,
much
over,
so.
over the last few months.
Very much so. So today we have Dr. Saliha Afridi. She's the clinical psychologist and founder and managing director of Lighthouse Arabia. Welcome, Dr. Saliha.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's my
How
pleasure.
are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Listen, for all of our viewers out there, if you could just sort of give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you came to start something as incredible as Lighthouse Arabia.
Sure. So the story is too long, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but they can find it on social media or on my Instagram account. But so I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm the managing director and founder of the Lighthouse Arabia. Lighthouse Arabia is a community mental health and well-being center, which was founded 9 years ago. I moved here to the UAE from the United States 12 years ago. And I was here, I was working, and I found that there was just a lot of need and community education and community awareness, still very, very thick stigma around mental health. And it was very much a taboo topic. And so I found myself very much drawn to this idea of wanting to increase awareness, as well as just educate people on how to take care of their emotional well-being and their mental health. And so, through all of my lefts and rights turns, I eventually landed on the idea of opening a mental health center. And it started off actually as a project for me because I needed a place to deliver free support groups. And I didn't know how to deliver the free support groups. And it was actually around the topic of grief and death. And so I wanted to go to hospitals, I wanted to go to private clinics, but everyone really had quite a financial model. And if I wasn't making any money, then I wasn't going to be a very good tenant, I guess, of that room or that space.
Oh, wow.
And so this is where the idea and, the universe aligned. And I just, the Lighthouse came out of that particular need for me to create a place where I can have support groups free of charge that are for the community. And so it is accessible to the community. And so let's start a business which will then fund this service project. And so Dr. Tara and myself went and started the Lighthouse 9 years ago with the mission and the vision to want to create, accessible mental health services. And in order for us to do that, we also had to run a business alongside of it. So we operate like a social enterprise, very much a social enterprise, because we have a clear mission at the heart of who we are. And we have about 30 clinicians working, psychologists, psychiatrists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, all which are aligned with that mission that we will all do free work. We will all provide free services on some level within our schedule, alongside of us actually making a living and running a business.
That's fantastic. Like just the smile on your face when you talk about creating something like that. Like it's truly from the heart, And
it really is.
And I can imagine 2011, you touched on it. You mentioned yourself saying back then it wasn't quite accepted. Even
now, I think like on a personal level, like I never really thought about my mental health. I never thought about my well-being in general. Like we work in the events industry.
We have no well-being.
We have late nights, early mornings, we're constantly on the grind. But I think especially over the last few months, like it's really made us think about, our mental health and our mental state and the challenges and pressures.
Well, it's also made it better to talk about. It's something that people have to talk about. But back then, what would you say was one of the major hurdles you had to overcome? Was it making people understand what it was?
Well, I think a lot of people understood what it was. I don't think a lot of people knew that children and adolescents can have mental health issues. That was like, what? It was a new thing. I think that employers were not necessarily very concerned about their employees' mental health. It was still a very old school physical health model of looking at things. And so I think the biggest hurdle was probably just being a woman and talking about some of these things within this region. And probably being one of the first women in the arena of mental health that had a private clinic in the UAE. So I think that probably was the biggest challenge, is to get people to listen to me in particular. And I think when we first started our support groups, like it was still like, what? You want me to sit in front of a group of people and talk about my stuff? And so support groups, I remember we would have like one person show up or two people show up. We would still run the support group because we felt like these people needed to be there. But now we have people from all over the region, and not even all over the world, literally dialing into some of these online support groups. So we feel, it's a long way that we have come since the first.
Well, I have to say you have amassed one hell of a following. So clearly people did listen to you. Because just think about following? It's huge. Anywhere, every time I'm online, where anyone comments about, I need to see someone, got a friend with me, got an issue, I think they need to talk to someone, I need to talk to someone, where can I look? The name that constantly comes back over and over again is Lighthouse Radio. Wow. So you literally are the beacon, and that's a testament to the hard work that you've done.
Thank you. It is an honor.
Well, that sort of leads to the next conversation, doesn't it? So as we sort of said just earlier, with COVID and with the pandemic and all of that happening, more than ever, we've had to band together to look after each other. How have you found it down at Lighthouse? how's it been looking these last 6 months? The phone must be ringing.
To be very, very honest and very, very frank, our phone is not ringing any more or less than it always has been. We've always had a waiting list. And I would say the October before, so October 2019, was probably one of the busiest times that we have ever experienced in the history of the Lighthouse, or probably just, we had some 800-900 people waiting to be seen. It was just like, the air was thick and I could feel, I'm like, what is going on? It was almost as if the bubble was getting bigger and bigger, and I sensed the thickness in the air. And I said, something's about to blow and I don't understand what this is. And I remember saying this in October, November, like, something's just not right here. Something's not right here. And then came December and January, and then all of this stuff with COVID. So we were really at a low point when I would say just as in within the UAE, October 2019. And I feel like it was the 10-year mark of social media, a technology, our smartphones.
Yeah.
So I really feel like we finally hit a breaking point in October. And like the universe was just sort of correcting itself by doing some of the things that it did starting COVID and all these shutdowns and pauses and periods where we were not engaging as much with the outside world and our distractions. But now what we are seeing is that the people are still calling. It's just that the intensity with which they are calling is just heightened. So it's now where we were at breaking point. Now we are in like the drowning zone or the desperate zone.
Oh, wow.
There is another group of people that is calling, which actually is saying, I'm okay, but all of my life is now in question. My values are in question. My meaning is in question. Yeah. And so they actually are questioning a lot about their relationships. Am I even in the right job? Am I even doing anything of meaning? What's this all about anyways? So they're in that insight-oriented phase, or they're in that crisis phase.
It's interesting you mentioned that because
that's us.
That's us, yeah. Like, I mentioned off air, like my sister's an A&E nurse in a North Manchester hospital. So she's dealing with the COVID situation on a daily basis, and she has purpose. She's helping people. And then you look at kind of like where I am or what we do, like the events industry.
It just crumbled.
It crumbled completely, and then you often feel like that self-worthlessness, and you don't feel like you contribute to society anymore. You've gone from those moments. The reason why we do our job is not necessarily financial. It's because we enjoy what we do. We like to meet people. We
love bringing people together. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you can't do that, then it kind of makes you question, well, what's your purpose in life? Why are you here? Why have I invested all of this time and energy and, who I am as a person? It's a lifestyle, not a job. When I can no longer do that anymore, you lose your identity. Yeah. And I think I personally felt that, especially over the last 6 months.
That was the thing. I've actually put it down as a question, seeing people in that scenario, what is the psychological effect? Some people might be feeling things, but they don't actually know what it is. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
Can you explain what is psychological effect?
Well, as in, people will sit there and they'll feel down, or they have lack of sense of purpose and all that. But on a sort of soulful, on your psyche, what sort of effect would that have? Is it simply to say, well, it's more depression that you're feeling? But it's not like that. People feel depression, that they feel anxiety. Those are the emotions that are coming out at this time. Or am I completely off the mark?
No, of course. Whenever there's a crisis, whenever there is, this was a traumatic event. People lost lives, people lost their livelihoods, people lost contact with communities and societies. You guys experienced a crumbling, as you say, of a reality. You're literally tracking one way, and then immediately the ground gets pulled from underneath you. So this is a very traumatic event, and I don't think people even understand what that can do to the psyche. So the first and most, present thing that I've noticed in people is anxiety, because anxiety equals uncertainty plus powerlessness. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of uncertainty going around. Yeah. And now people are feeling powerless because where's my sense of agency when I can't even book a ticket, I can't travel, I can't even walk to the grocery store without me having like a whole hazmat suit on. So like there just feels like there's no freedom anymore. Yeah. So I would say anxiety is a big one. Yeah. Of course, depression is a big one because so many people have lost, and depression and grief go hand in hand. And we have all lost so much.
In so many ways.
We have lost of normalcy, a loss of purpose, a loss of community, a loss of being able to see each other's faces, being able to just be like, hey, I'm going to come over, I'm going to hang out. But now there needs to be a whole like sanitizing routine that happens and COVID tests that happen before you do that with other people. There's just so much that we have lost.
Like we even try to Zoom, but it's not the same.
No. Do you know, like I was talking to a friend the other day, like in all honesty, they had, a challenge the other week, and, they were really upset and they were talking to me. And, you know, what they lost was they lost a sense of hope and a sense of like future. You know, they literally turned around and said, there's just nothing to look forward to anymore. You know, because they can't travel. All the things that they enjoyed was like, you know, going out, traveling, experiences, you know, having adventure, joy. Like, it just simply didn't exist. It was just a day-to-day existence of dealing with another challenge that the situation has provided. And I think for me, that was the biggest kind of reckoning when it was like, wow, I was like, you know, people really are impacted by this so heavily, not just me personally, but even industries that have not necessarily been affected by COVID. You know, people still have the job and stuff, but for them, like, they've lost
but there's this constant, but there is this constant anxiety. You know, you might have a job, but you have it today, you might not have it tomorrow. So there's this undercurrent. Like, to me, that's really deadly. Yeah. That's really deadly. But the word you use, trauma, like, that's spot on. It is trauma. We've all gone through trauma.
And it's interesting because it's in many ways it's more of a mental trauma rather than a physical trauma. You know, like, we're not physically injured, but like, we've taken such I always say a battering. You know, like, it's been a bruising encounter where we've had to just deal with challenge after challenge
and
after
have to
challenge,
keep getting back up
constantly.
Sometimes the physical trauma can even be a little bit easier because it's identifiable. You can see it. Yeah. But here, there's so many losses. Yeah. There's so much you feel confused about. You feel so disoriented. Your whole persona, your personality here. I work in the events industry. All of a sudden, there is no events industry. Well, who am I then? Exactly. Immediately, it's almost disintegration of a whole identity. Yeah. And so that can be very disorienting and displacing for people. So I would say that trauma sometimes, when it's happening on these emotional and mental level, can be harder to cope with because you can't put your finger on it. Yeah. You can't understand why. Everything is working. Okay, I'm going to sleep, I'm eating, I'm alive, I'm healthy, but I feel like I'm losing it. I feel like nothing.
Come on, remember, we had days where we come in and like, you couldn't put your finger on it. You just felt horrible.
Oh, the amount. The amount of times when, like, I've literally woke up in the morning, I'm so exhausted, and it's like, you know what, I just want to sleep today. Like, I just can't. And like,
no matter how much you sleep,
person.
it just
gets worse and worse. And you could, like, you can feel the red mist or the fog. It just, like, you can feel it and cloud. You can see it. Yeah. You know, and it's horrible. And to pull yourself out of that situation is really challenging.
But that's the thing. How can we be there for our friends when what signs should we look for? How can we be there for them? You know, I get the whole, it's okay not to be okay, but it's great to say that, but
also some people feel really hard to express that they're not okay. You know, because some people, you know, they want to be strong and be perceived as being strong. Yeah. And, you know, I guess mental health or anxiety, you know, sometimes it's perceived as a weakness. So it's really difficult for people to come out. So I think, like you were mentioning, like, how do we identify that?
So there were a few questions there, Dr. Salia.
Sorry, we were just talking, we're like brain going.
The fact that we've got you here and can ask a lot of questions that we know our friends wish that they could ask, you know, we're throwing it there. So first of all, how can we be there for our friends?
So one thing is that we should all know that mental illness exists in 1 out of 4 people, according to the World Health Organization. 1 out of 4 people will struggle or already has struggled with a mental illness within their life. Okay, so you, me, okay, a quarter, right? If we have 4 people in a room, one of us has experienced.
We do.
Yeah, right? Socially distant.
So I can say that I've had depression as you know, as a result of a life adjustment at one point in my life. So that would be me. So I can take that 25% here. But 1 out of 4 people. So this is not something that happens to other people. This happens to my people, and it can happen to me. So that's one thing I think we should just all be aware of. If I know that, if I told you that 1 out of 4 people is going to choke in front of you at one point, wouldn't you feel very, very compelled to learn how to do the Heimlich maneuver?
Exactly.
You would figure out how to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. You would figure out, like, I need to protect whoever's going to be choking in front of me
100%.
If I'm the only person in that room. I would take the same level of seriousness when it comes to mental health first aid. Yeah. There is a course, we teach it, it's 10 hours long, it's out of Australia, and we are licensed to deliver that in the UAE. And I would say get trained to get mental health first aid, which means you will detect depression, anxiety. You will be able to detect some of these suicidality, substance abuse. These are very common things that happen. They don't just happen to other people, they happen to our people, they happen to us. So how do I detect that and how do I support someone? That would be the second thing I would say, get trained in mental health first aid. The third thing I would say is do not underestimate the power of just listening to your friend and just being there for them. Sometimes we don't know. We know if someone in my family dies, I know you can't bring them back, but just sitting with me and having a companion and a witness to that experience is the most powerful thing that you can do for another person. If you have the capacity or the financial ability, or you have time, you have energy, take whatever burden you can lift off of them. And sometimes it's literally the day-to-day stuff. Like, listen, man, you don't got to worry about lunch. I'm going to have it delivered to you, or I'm going to bring it over. Or, hey, why don't we go for a walk? It's just some of these things that you can do that take some of the weight off of the day-to-day stuff that actually chips away at our health. So these are just a couple things to keep in mind. But I can go through all of the different diagnoses and say for depression, you need to look for these 5 things. But I would say one thing to keep in mind is that we all have days where we are low. So yes, it is okay to not be okay. It is not okay to not be okay for so long. You need to get help.
Yeah.
Right. We need to not make it okay that, oh, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay. But now if I'm not okay all day long, every day for 2 weeks, not okay.
Yeah.
You need to get support because it doesn't go away.
That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point to make.
Yes. And so I would say focus on intensity, frequency, and duration. How intense is the feeling? Is it 1 out of 10? Okay, it's a 10. It's really bad. How long has this been going on? It's most of the day, every day for 2 days. I'm still okay. I got my eye on you. I'm checking in on you. Yeah. 2 days, we all have those days where we just don't want to crawl, we just don't want to leave our bed, right? Yeah. And brushing your teeth seems like the biggest feat. But now if it's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, now it's a clinical issue. You need to address this. So I think we need to make a little bit of room is what I'm trying to say for some bad days, some really bad days, and maybe 3, 4, 5 bad days in a row.
Yeah.
But then we find our way out of those bad days, and then we get on with it. That's okay. We need to make room because we do tend to live in a culture of like positive psychology and happy faces and be happy all the time. I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all. But you know what? I have optimism, and that's what I'm shooting for at this point. But some days you're not happy. Don't be happy. Be real, be authentic. But when those unhappy days extend for too long, then there's an issue, and you can get support for that.
So I really love that you said that, because you see all the campaigns. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And I look at that and I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
But in some ways, to me, that's sort of letting it be okay to not be okay for too long. And then if you're not okay for too long and you've been told it's okay not to be okay, then you might think that it's normal.
Yeah, and it's
you
not.
know, so I'm really glad that you've touched on that, because it does say, okay, if it goes for a while, reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out and as and you've already gone through sort of what signs to look for, and you've answered my next question as well, which was, for what can those who are affected, how can they help themselves? And the bottom line is reach out, is to, phone a friend and let them be there for you. But, as like a lot of times I'm known for this. If I don't hear from friends for a while, they'll start getting messages from me. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Just checking you're okay. And then and if they don't respond to that, I then call them.
Yeah.
And then if they don't answer that, they'll get another message going, if you don't tell me you're okay, I'm driving to your house now. And, a lot of times I get people going, oh, come on, Lily, you're being over dramatic. I'm like, all it takes is that one time that you don't.
Yeah.
We're all living quite transient. We're family.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do the same to you. I'm like, Dan, you okay? Dan, you okay? I went and serenaded him in the middle of the greens when he was on lockdown.
Quarantine with COVID.
And I just basically, I'm going to walk around. I'm going to come. Which window are you? Which balcony? And I went over to the balcony, and his neighbors are like, who is this mad woman? And I'm like, I don't care. He's my friend, and I just need to know he's okay.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people which can then just completely detract. So, I can feel it. I feel like this red mist. It's bizarre. Like, I can feel like a sense of anger in many ways, frustration. And then straight away, it's like, I need to be alone. Like I lock myself in my home, like I'm away for a couple of days. It's like, just leave me, I'll be fine. I just need food and water and some Netflix. And then you can feel yourself coming out of it. But it's tough, man. It's really tough.
But if you've got those scenarios, Dr. Celia, that okay, you can feel that a friend's not okay, and you reach out to them and you're not getting a response, because there are times where I'm like, okay, I don't want to overstep, but then I'm worried about the person. How do you get around that?
Overstep, always overstep. I think always overstep is what I would say. I think what would be helpful is anyone who's listening that takes some responsibility and ownership of that relationship. So there are times where I actually go to my friends and say, listen, I need to go into my cave because I don't want to talk to anyone right now as I process what just happened to me, because I don't process out loud. Not everyone talks out loud to process things. Some people do need to lock themselves up and then digest and process what they're feeling. But I have a duty to my friendship that I will tell you, hey, listen, man, give me 3 days or give me 4 days. I promise to check in with you. And then I'll let you know if I need anything else. I think that's when you take the whole burden off of the other person, because then the other person is like, oh my God, what more can I do? Or what should I do? Or what can I do?
Exactly.
And that's just disruptive to everybody. It's disruptive to the person who's trying to support, but it also isn't helpful for the person who's trying to go internally and try to process this.
Exactly, because you don't want to add to the anxiety.
Exactly, because now I feel like I have to respond to you, but I'm still working on this. And so if I just tell you, hey, Lily, listen, I'm really going through something right now, and the way I go through things, I need 4 days at least, or maybe 5. But I promise I'll just send you a thumbs up at the end of the day, just to make sure that you know I'm okay. Yeah. But I'm okay, but I'm really hurting right now. But the way I deal with pain, I do it on my own until I have some ability to come and speak about it, because I'm overwhelmed right now. And I don't want to be around people because people overwhelm me. Okay, it's okay to do that. You don't have to talk about everything all the time. Everyone has their own way of going through things. You just have to know your way, and then you have to educate the people in your life about that way, because that's fair.
Agreed. It's
not fair that you disappear and then I don't know if you're dead or alive, and I'm worried. So I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That sort of gets to a sort of a tricky topic, which is when you do sort of, you speak to a friend, you see that they're saying they're okay, but you can tell they're not okay. They say things that are, becoming questionable. I'm over it. I don't want to be here anymore. Those sorts of comments.
I don't want to live.
I don't want to live. What do you do then? How do you handle that?
You just say it like that. Are you going to kill yourself?
Oh, wow.
Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Because what we're afraid of is that if I tell them or if I ask them, then maybe I will be suggesting that, or maybe I will be
disrespecting them even.
Yeah. No, but the research shows the best way to confront suicidality is to talk about it right into their face and say, I see you. And are you going to kill yourself? Do you have a plan?
Wow.
What do you think? You need to tell me. And that way they say, okay, someone sees me and someone can hear me. At least that way you're going with your gut. And then they would say, because I've heard it all kinds of ways. I've heard people say, oh man, I'm so done. I'm so done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you're like, are you going to hurt yourself? Are you going to kill yourself? And they say, no, man, come on. I'm just done with this. I'm done with this feeling, but I'm not going to kill myself. But it's important that you ask. You never, ever bypass something like that, because it could mean that they could actually be killing themselves. So you could actually intervene on that. And all the research supports this, that you ask it head on, clearly, not in a suggestive, wishy-washy way. Are you going to kill yourself?
And you know what? It's interesting you say that because it's been happening more and more over the last few months in particular.
It's scary.
It's really scary. But like, even I've had those personal conversations with people recently, and we've had to ask the question. You know,
so you've asked the question.
Yeah,
you've been in that scenario.
And somebody's
now.
asked me the question as well because you know, there's been moments where I've been upset and down and been like, guys, I can't do this anymore. This is too much. And like, you have to, like you mentioned, address the question straight on. And then, you know, you have that very frank discussion, and I guess you figure out the best way to deal with it.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, the next question. This is all just rolling on quite like organically. You ask someone and they go, "Nah, man, I'm just done. Just give me some time, or let's go have a drink, or I just need some time out. Let's go to a spa, whatever." That's fine. You ask someone and go, Are you planning on doing? You know, are you planning on? I can't even say it. Are you planning on killing yourself?
Yeah.
And they go white or they go silent, and the response is that yes, they're there. What do you do then?
Well, you sit with them and you learn how to respond to that. This is where the mental health aid in, because now you sit with them. Now you make sure that they are not alone. If they live alone, you don't leave their side. You contact the people that will get them the support and the help they need. And so you make sure they get to that appointment. So that's how you're going to have to talk about it. This is not about, in that moment, you don't want to say these, you know, platitudes, which, oh, come on, at least you have your health. And at least you know, have a dog, or at least you, like, when people start to say some of these things, that really dismisses and invalidates the person's experience. Tell me what you're going through. Talk to me. I want to hear what you're carrying. So help me carry it. I want to carry it with you. So this is where you sit with that person's experience. You don't make dismissive comments like, oh, come on, man, look on the bright side. You have so much to live for, because that's not where they're at. They're not there. They're actually in a very dark place, and you've got to meet them in the center of their fire and sit and take that heat with them until they're ready to step out of the ring of fire and actually be able to talk about it in a different way. So being with them, sitting with them, not leaving them alone, and getting them to the right support is going to be very important.
Brilliant. And where can we reach? Who can we call?
So not every clinic in the UAE. I mean, there's lots of different helplines, international suicide helplines that you can actually make sure that you have that resource available to them, that if you ever feel low, you just want to talk to somebody, you can call some of these international lines. But I would also say that locally, you have to actually take them to some of these psychiatric hospitals if they actually feel very, very suicidal, like they're in that moment. You need to get them to a psychiatric support. If they're not, if they're just sort of, you know, in that planning and contemplating stage, then I would actually get them to a psychiatrist. And a psychiatrist will actually help them with medication. That medication will help buoy them up in the sense that it's going to give them a little bit of support neurochemically, where they can actually not have such dark, dreary feelings all the time. And then they can actually get onto therapy. When someone is that dark and that suicidal, we actually don't recommend therapy at that time, because everything is flying over their head. Like, don't tell
Nothing's
me
gonna go
to
in.
have like a coping card in my pocket when I can't even brush my teeth. Like, no, I'm not going to do this. So you actually have to build some strength in them to be able to then sit through therapy and learn something, right? Okay. Your brain needs to be involved in that process. So that's where we would say is either if it's very, very active, then you go to the hospital and you check yourself in and they monitor you. If it's not very, very active, then get into a psychiatrist to get medication management. And then after that, you would need to be in psychotherapy so you can build enough coping skills, because we all have dark days and really, really dark days. You need to have some toolbox to go after these dark days. And that's what therapy is going to teach you, is how do you build a toolbox of coping skills that will help you be a little bit tougher, a little bit more resilient in these stormy times.
Well, go on.
I have a question. I don't know if it's like jumping the gun.
No, go for it.
I think one of the big things which I always want to know, because we hear this all the time, is that suicide seems to disproportionately affect men in particular. And I've had like 3-4 friends or, you know, distant family members that have committed suicide. So I think for me now, with this opportunity, is like, you know, is there a reason for that? Why does it seem to
men.
affect men in particular? And that, I guess, men seem to think that this is the answer.
So men actually use a lot more violent methods of committing suicide. And
That's
so
true.
the completion rate for men is actually higher than women. Women actually do not tend to use as violent methods, so their completion rate is lower. Suicide is the leading cause of death for men, I think under 45 in the UK. It is the leading cause, and it is something that I think is I would say that the number one contributor to that is our patriarchal systems that we have been subscribed to or prescribed ever since little, that boys don't cry and be a big boy and come on, be a man and toughen up and don't
man up.
You literally would rather die than to admit vulnerability. And that's what most men feel. Is that they're taught literally from inception all the way through childhood and adulthood, is that you don't have feelings. And so obviously you think something's wrong with you if you are feeling. And then men actually feed into that system. And women actually don't know what to do with the man if he's a little bit emotional. Oh my God, why is he being such a girl, right? Everyone is feeding in the storyline of patriarchy that men should not feel. And then they oppress, and then they aggress, and then they aggress against themselves. Because what do you do when you are so cut off from feeling yourself, feeling another person, feeling anything? And that is a whole language and a whole cultural shift that needs to happen. And that needs to be coming down with the system of patriarchy that has put everybody in their place, which actually has denied, men especially, their emotional life.
Their ability to actually be an individual.
And to have to be an individual who feels.
Exactly.
You're not feel. You just think and you work and you procreate and you provide. Period. And that's really what you are sort of boxed into. You get out of that box, and then all of a sudden there's a whole list of labels that I can throw in your direction. This is not normal.
No,
we just all need to step up and just say, not normal. We need to break from that system. It's just not normal. It worked for a while. It doesn't work anymore.
No, not at all.
Well, I've only got one more question to sort of finish off on a positive note. For the rest of us who are still doing okay, what can we do to look after our mental health?
Oh, there's so many things. But I would say that especially in times of crisis, you really need to make sure that you're taking care of your physical health. The physical health is the first thing that sort of goes out the window when we are in times of crisis. We don't sleep right. We start to order those burgers and those chocolate cakes.
And the waistline.
I can agree.
Yeah, right? Because that sugar is soothing to us, and it's comforting to us. And that bowl of pasta is comforting to us. And we just need a lot more sugar in times of fight or flight and in times of crisis. So the first thing I would say is that forget everything else, but take care of your physical body. Your physical body is going to carry you when your mental and your emotional body are spiraling out of control. And so one thing I would say is make sure that you protect your sleep. Don't drink caffeine after 10 a.m. Make sure that you have all sorts of sleep rituals that are, I know everybody's looking at me
Oops, we're all looking at each other going guilty.
Like my last cup of coffee is a little bit like 8 p.m.
I just finished mine.
8 p.m.
No, it really disrupts the restorative sleep.
That's very true, though.
You really, and people say, no, I can sleep just fine. It's just not true. You're a human being, and caffeine affects the human brain in a certain way. So you might actually be having your eyes closed, but you're not getting that deep restorative sleep that you need in order for you to rejuvenate and recalibrate and, rehabilitate actually all the things that you've done to your body during the day. So sleep would be very important. What you eat is very important. 90%, 90% of that happy chemical that is in antidepressants is not in our brain. It's in our gut. And so if your gut is unhappy, guess what else is unhappy? Your brain is going to be unhappy because there's a mind-body connection called the vagus nerve, which is basically like a two-way highway that communicates from your brain to your lungs, to your liver, to your heart, to your gut. And so all these major organs are connected to your brain. If these organs are not happy, guess what else is not going to be happy? So I would say, drink your water, drink your decaffeinated teas in the evening, have a sleeping ritual, but really become a little bit hyper vigilant about your physical body.
Yeah.
I cannot underestimate the importance of physical movement in times of crisis. Our body holds a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion equals energy in motion. Energy that is not moving, and we're sitting stagnant. Guess where all of that goes? And that's where you feel like you're actually going to explode, or your heart is going to explode, or it will weigh you down and you won't be able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so we need to move some of this energy around through physical movement. And the research shows it that if you have 3 to 4 days of 75% of your maximum heart rate, so that means you're huffing and puffing, but not like going full on, you actually have the same effects as antidepressants and anti-anxieties.
Wow.
And so we actually have all of these really beautiful ways that our body actually works. Our body is an extremely sophisticated machine. Okay, we have survived hundreds of thousands of years of all sorts of disasters. We are actually a very resilient being. We just need to do the basics. What we are not doing are the basics.
Yeah.
We're reading all sorts of articles and all sorts of books, but guess what? We're not sleeping, we're not eating, we're not drinking water, we're not moving. Okay, all of a sudden the system shuts down.
But the thing is,
because our body,
I was going to say that the things that sound so easy, you know, these are the things which you should be doing, but it's like you said, it's the first things we forget and that we neglect.
Absolutely.
and this is the problem of the modern man. He has given way too much importance to his mind and not enough to his body. But the body is where the health lies, and that will actually communicate to the brain as well.
Yeah.
And you will feel a sense of personal agency when you stick to a routine, when you get up and you get dressed and you go work out. I mean, there's a rhythm that starts to happen in your day when you get a sense of control.
Yeah.
And so I would say the best thing that you can do for your mental health, especially in times of crisis, I would say is focus on your physical health. And I literally become like a Spartan. I become like a Jedi trainer when it comes to times of crisis. Everything can be negotiated, but my physical health, my sleep, when am I eating, when am I drinking, when am I, exercising, I buckle down on those things, and they just seem to carry me through the rest of it. Now, I do think it's important for you to learn coping skills for anxiety through cognitive behavioral therapy or ACT or meditation or mindfulness. But none of this stuff matters if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours.
If the foundation's
none of this
not
stuff
right.
matters. You've not actually got a physical body that can actually be, healthy. So you can meditate all you want, but if you're eating burgers and pizzas every day, you're still going to feel like crap. So I would say focus on the physical body and meditate is the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Right. So me and you're going to start walking again. We're going around the block. No more burgers.
But do you know what, though? It's so true.
It is
because
true.
over the last few days, I was like, right, okay. In fact, actually, it's my personal trainer. He called me and he was like, look, I need to help you out. So, he was like, come to the gym. I'll give you some sessions. He was like, I know you've been struggling over the last few months, like from work capacity. And the difference it's made by getting up at like 5:30 in the morning, actually just dragging myself out of bed has been massive.
Huge difference.
Huge. Like, because you just feel, you can take it out in the gym and then afterwards you just feel like you can carry on with the rest of the day. And then all these challenges, you feel you can just take them on a lot more.
Well, my dad always said, he goes, when the mind's not right, focus on the body, exercise.
Yeah.
That was his mantra. So, damn, I should have listened to him more.
Dad,
like, you were so right, damn it.
It's just we're getting old now, so going to the gym is just a little bit harder.
Listen, Dr. Saliha, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for your time. All the words of wisdom. It's been
enlightening. Thank you so much, because this is such an important topic for I guess us personally, but for our friends and the people we're talking to. Like, it's been such a challenge. So if anyone is watching this, I hope it really does help.
If anyone needs anything, you want some, clearly there is a reason why you've amassed such a following. The amount of knowledge and the passion and the compassion that you have for what you do is phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I just add one last thing?
Sure.
The people that are listening, that we do have these free support groups. We have 17 of them running right now.
Fantastic.
And there is one for emotional support, just emotional health. That, you're having a low day, a bad day, just drop in. It's a Zoom online group. You can actually stop in. There's no charge for these groups. We have one for everything under the sun, including grief support groups and job loss support groups. And then you don't feel like you're alone in this. So I would really recommend people looking at our free services that we offer that are clinical therapeutic environments that you don't have to pay for, that you can actually access.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You know, I think especially for our industry, primarily our audience, like the entertainment industry, the events industry, I think this will be a vital support tool. Because so many people, feel like they can't afford to get help, and they also don't know where they can get help from. So thank you so much.
They will now. Yeah, they will now. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you back again.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.